Okay, Mr. Rops here, and we're going to put all these factoring ideas together. And so the first thing you have to consider when you're factoring is if you have a GDC or not. If you have a GDC, then you can just take a look at the graph, pull the x-intercepts out, and you are ready to go to factored form. If you don't have a GDC, which is what I'm assuming afterwards, we assume you don't have a GDC, then the next thing you do, the first thing you do is you look for a common factor. You must do this. It makes life so much easier if there is a common factor and you pull it out. If there is a common factor, then you have to consider what does A equal to. The A is the first term of the quadratic in this form. It may not be factorable. If A equals 1, you do one thing. If A doesn't equal to 1, you do the other technique. You do the one with the box. If A equals 1, you do the magic question only. If it doesn't equal to 1, you have to do the magic question and the box. Same thing here. If you have A equal to 1, you have to do the magic question plus the box. If A equals 1 is just the magic question, or if it's not factorable, then you are done. So let's consider what we have here. First one here, I consider here, I look, first of all, no calculator, can't use that. Second step I consider is common factor. Is there a common factor? No, there's no common factor. Next thing I think of, so no common factor, is A 1 or not 1? What's going on here? And clearly A is 1. There's in front there. So what I do then is I do my magic question. The magic question says what two values multiply to get 8 and multiply to get 8x squared and add to get 6x. Well, I know that I can have a 4 and a 2 to do that. And so it's x plus 4 and an x plus 2. This is not necessary. If you go straight to here, please do so. Next scenario, 16x squared minus 9. Well, I know my first step I have to consider is, do I have a GDC or not? Well, doesn't say I can't use a GDC, so let me use my GDC. Let's make life easy. And I know I'm going to go to y equals. I'm also going to come along here and pull this away to help you remember your steps, please. So I'm going to go to y equals and I'm going to type this in, 16. Now it says a squared, but my calculator likes x squares minus 9. Okay, that I put in my y equals. Then the next thing I type in is, this is graph. So I hit my graph button, I graph it, and I see that. Then the next step, step 3, is I go second. The trace menu, the calculate menu is under the trace here. And then I hit number 2, 0. I'm hitting number 2. Hit 2. Now I have to do a little bit of thinking here. I'm going to pull this over. And I have to think about what is this value look like. I'm going to do this one first. This one looks to me to be about x equal to 1 approximately. That's my guess. So when I go to my calculator, my left bound, I guess it to be 1. So my left bound, I want to be left of 1, is going to be 0. I can't go too far left capturing both. I just need one of them. And then my right bound over on the right-hand side of this one. So I'm going to just type 3 because I know that clearly that's to the right of it. And I'm going to guess 1. And I get x equals to 7.5, or x equals to 0.75. We're going to have to do something with that in just a moment. And then finally, we do the same thing to the other side. I'm going to go second, trace, number 2. And now I'm here at 0. My left bound, well, if I think here, I'm going to guess that to be negative 1. So left of negative 1 is going to be a negative 3. Now I need a right bound. I'm going to make that 0. And my guess, well, I said my guess was negative 1. And again, I get negative. I get negative 0.75. X equals negative 0.75. Now, I don't really know what to do with that because these are decimals. I haven't had that before. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go second quit. The X value, I'm going to enter it, is 0.75. I'm going to change this to a fraction. To do that, I go to the math button, and number 1 is fraction, so I hit enter on that. And it makes negative 3/4. And so X equals negative 3/4. And I know, let me write it again, X equals negative 3/4. And I have to go backwards. I need it to be equal to 0. So in order to do that, I multiply by 4. So I multiply both sides by 4 equals negative 3. And I add 3, and it's 4x plus 3. That's going to be one of my factors. It's going to be a 4a, though, a plus 3. I do the same thing with the 0.75. I know that's going to be x is equal to 3/4. Multiply by 4 equal to 3. Subtract 3 is 4x minus 3 is 0. And so this is the second factor here. So it's 4a minus 3. And so I can use my calculator to help me out here. What you can also notice that this here is what we call a perfect square, as is 9, and they are subtracting. You might see the pattern between these perfect squares and this perfect square here. That is a pattern that works all the time, and it's a shortcut you could look for a difference of squares. But you can use your calculator to help you through it as well. Let's try another example. Now we're told no GDC. The next thing to look for is a common factor. Common factor. Well, 3 and 5 don't have a common factor. There's no common factor. So then I must go through the long process. I multiply 3t squared and minus 2 is a minus 6t squared. The 5t goes up top. And I ask myself, what two numbers multiply to get negative 6? Add to get 5. A positive 5. Well, I know I could get a 6t and a 1t where this is negative. Be careful, it's not 3 and 2 because I need a positive 5 and a negative 6 multiplied. Using the bit here, this is my 3t squared. My minus 2 goes down here. And these go in the middle, or the last two boxes that are left. A minus t and a 6t. Pulling out my factors here, I get this one is the boss, so it's 3t. Here, 6t and negative 2 gives a factor of 2. Here I get, let me back up here a second. This one I did incorrectly here. That should just be t, not 3t. When I go up this way, that's 3t. And here, remember this sign is the boss, it is negative 1. And so when I factor it, I get a t plus 2 from this combination, and a 3t minus 1. 3t squared to check it. Double happy face here. 6t and a minus t makes the 5t. And finally negative 2 when I multiply the last two. So this one here, try it on your own without pause it. Try it on your own. Pause it, go ahead. Okay, now you're back. Step 1, common factor. Oh, happily I pull out the 2 and I get an x squared plus 9x plus 20. And so now I think about the 1, the a is 1. So I can think about what multiplies to get 20 and adds to get 9. Well, I know that 20 can be 4 and 5 and 2 and 10. Well, these two can make 9. So I have 4, and I have 5, x and x. Everything's positive. That makes 9, and they multiply to get 20. If I want to check my work, which is always a good idea, I multiply these out. I get 2. X times x is x squared. 5x plus 4x plus 20. Collecting like terms, I get x squared plus 9x plus 20. Distributing the 2 gives me 2x squared plus 18x plus 40, which is what I started off with, and it is correct.